Nityananda Jaya Nityananda Jaya Bhagavati
Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Vaita Chandra Jaya Bhagavata Vrinda
Jaya Chaitanya.
Reading from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. Adi Leela, Chapter 2, Text 52. And it's on the board. I can't read this book, it's too small. Sorry, I have to get the from the Kindle.
There are two.
Oh, this looks less austere. Hey, no, don't worry, I don't need. Ishabara Dashanete Ache Maya Ganda Turiya Krishna Ranahi Maya Rasambanda Ishabara Dashanete Ache Maya Ganda Turiya Krishna Ranahi Maya Rasambanda Eshabara Dashanete Ache Maya Ganda Turiya Krishna Ranahi Maya Rasambanda Eshabara Dashanete Ache Maya Ganda Turiya Krishna Ranahi Maya Rasambanda Eshabara Dashanete Ache Maya Ganda Turiya Krishna Ranahi Maya Rasambanda Eshabara Dashanete Ache Maya Ganda Turiya Krishna Ranahi Maya Rasambanda. This Sabara, the assembly. Darshanete, in seeing. Ache, there is. Maya Ganda, connection with Maya. Turiya, the fourth. Krishnara, of Lord Krishna. Nahi, there is not. Mayara, of the material energy. Sambandha, connection. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Superficially, we see that these Purushas have a relationship with Maya. But above them, in the fourth dimension, is Lord Krishna, who has no contact with the material energy. Purport. The three Purushas, Karana Dakashaya Vishnu, Garbha Dakashaya Vishnu, and Shira Dakashaya Vishnu, all have a relationship with the material energy called Maya, because through Maya they create the material cosmos. These three Purushas, who lie on the Karana, Garbha, and Shira oceans respectively, are the supersoul of everything that be. Karanadakashayi Vishnu is the supersoul of the collective universes. Garbhadakshayi Vishnu is the supersoul of the collective living beings. And Shiradakshayi Vishnu is the supersoul of all individual living entities. Because all of them are somehow attracted to the affairs of the material energy, they can be said to have some affection for Maya. But the transcendental position of Sri Krishna himself is not even slightly tinged by Maya. His transcendental state is called Turiya, or the fourth dimensional stage. Welcome Karochi Vachanam Bhangam Nandeti Virinta Kripa Tamaham Vande Shri Guru Panchakalpa Tribhischa Kripa Sindhivya Vijapatita Namba Vanyavi Vaishnava Om Vishwadaya Krishna Vastai Bhuvale Samadhi Bhagavati Om Vishwadaya Krishna Vastai Bhuvale Samadhi Bhaktivedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharani Navasesha Sanivadi Pashyata Nishtani. So this is a description of creation, how the different Vishnus are expansions of Krishna. So this is in the Vedic literature, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, and also in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. There's detailed descriptions of the creation and how the universe is going on and how everything is controlled ultimately by Krishna. But under Krishna there are sub-controllers. So it's very satisfying for the intellect to be able to understand how the whole of the material reality is structured, is ordered, is designed, is structured and controlled and managed, minutely managed right down to the details within the atom. Everything is very nicely organized and controlled. So many people, they are atheists because they do not accept the biblical narrative of creation. And they think that's the only thing that's available. You know, that they throw out the baby with the bathwater. They say, oh, we cannot accept this idea that God worked for we worked for 6 days, and the seventh day he took rest and everything came into being from nothing. They reject that idea and they become atheistic, or at least agnostic. They don't have proper information of the creation, and so they are fooled by the scientists as one gigantic hoax of that everything evolved by chance. Everything happened. There's a thing called the anthropic principle. It means that even though it's very, 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 very continuing, on and on, very, but unlikely that life as we know it on this planet, all the different varieties of life, arose by chance. The fact that we're here, the fact that we're here today proves that even though it's very unlikely, it has happened, and that's it all happened by chance. That is what they call it. It sounds like something scientific, the anthropic principle, but all it means is that the fact that we're here today proves that it all happened by chance. So this is the atheistic viewpoint, and many people, if you speak to them, that's what they will tell you. there isn't a God, but actually everything was created by chance. Not created, evolved. But then when they talk about evolution, they say nature designed the birds to fly in the sky, or they often use this word design or created, or as if nature is a person. Of course, we know that nature is a person. Nature is Maya. Maya is a female person, and it's described in detail here. So anyway, I'm just making the point that people, because they don't have this amazing knowledge that's given in the Vedas, this amazing detailed knowledge, they tend towards atheism. And of course, if you tend towards atheism, or you are actually, a confessed atheist, card-carrying atheist, then you are automatically a sense enjoyer. The two things go hand in hand. If you neglect God and God's service, then you're captured by Maya. You're captured by Maya's illusory energy. So, and under the dictates of the illusory energy, we perform activities for our own gratification, sense gratification, for our own profit. Everything becomes me-centered instead of being Krishna-centered. We're made to serve Krishna. That's our nature. It's like a wheel is made to go round. So we're made to serve Krishna. But if we don't do that, because we've been miseducated, misled, and ultimately desired it, but if we don't serve Krishna, then we have to serve illusion. We have to serve because it's our nature, it's our intrinsic nature, is to serve. So then we serve the illusory energy. So we're still actually serving Krishna if we're serving Maya, because Maya is Krishna's servant. Maya herself is Krishna's servant. And Prabhupada says that she has the thankless task. Thankless task means doing something that nobody really appreciates you doing. Nobody's going to say thank you very much, but you'd have to do it anyway. Can't think of an example. Maybe something like being a jailer in a prison. Somebody has to lock up the prisoners, but none of the prisoners are going to say, "Oh, thank you very much for locking me up." It's a thankless task. So Maya is the ultimate jailer. She's keeping us all in the material world with her illusory energy. This illusory energy is very powerful. And it's described here how the three Vishnus take charge of the different levels of this illusory energy. So there's Kshirodakshai Vishnu is in our heart and in the atom. So he's taking care of us on that level, giving us the intelligence how to run around in the material world and do our nefarious activities. And then there's Garbhodak Shai Vishnu, and he lies in the causal ocean, in the Garbhodak ocean at the bottom of the universe, and he creates all the planets. The lotus comes out of his navel, and on the stem of the lotus are the planets. So he arranges for all those planets. Lord Brahma actually manifests them, but they're there in the potential in the lotus stem. So all these planets are arranged for all the living entities to live on in this universe. That's called coming from Garbhodakshai Vishnu. And then Karanodakshai Vishnu is the form of Krishna who manifests the universes from the pores of his body. So in his Yoga Nidra, the universes are coming out. When he exhales, the universes come out, and when he inhales, the universes are wound up. So this whole arrangement very complicated arrangement. It's made by Krishna. So Krishna's doing it, what we would say nowadays, by remote. Krishna doesn't bother with the material energy because the material energy is insignificant. Material energy is it's just one of Krishna's energies, and Krishna is more interested in, in Hladini Shakti, enjoying in the spiritual world, than in dealing with us in the Maya Shakti or the Tatastha Shakti. So, if somebody is very powerful, very prestigious, and has a big position, generally they don't do all the dirty work themselves. They will employ somebody to clean their house or drive their car or weed the garden or take care of the kids sometimes. All the things that they don't really want to do or they choose not to spend their time doing, they get somebody else to do it. They outsource it. So it's the same. And many businesses run like that. They have somebody else or another department or another body to do the tasks, so that the person who has the power and the influence and the money to pay others, he can prioritize his time to do what he wants to do. Does that make sense? Yeah. So he has the free time to do what he likes. So Krishna designates these Vishnus, which is manifestations of himself. They're just as powerful as him, but they're forms especially for dealing with the material world. So then Krishna spends his time, he just likes to play his flute and dance with the gopis and eat laddus and run in the forest and jump in the Yamuna with the cowherd boys. And that's much more fun than worrying about all the silly jivas who are in Maya. Of course, he does care for and love everyone. But as I say, this arrangement is already made. The arrangement's already made to take care of us. He arranges perfectly to take care of all of us, and he's actually in everyone's heart as the Vishnu. But he has his priorities, and that's what he does in the spiritual world. He enjoys in his Goloka Vrindavan village, and he's eternally blissful there. He's not concerned with the day-to-day details of the suffering of the jivas, even though in another way he's aware of it. In one way he's not aware of it, and he's not disturbed. Krishna can do more than one thing at once. He can take care of the jivas and be aware of all our suffering and struggle, and at the same time he cannot be aware of it, and he can just be enjoying unlimited, ever-expanding bliss in the spiritual world. So the idea is of all this literature, of all this description of the creation, they think, well, why have we got to hear about the creation? Why don't we just hear about Krishna? If we want to go to Krishna, but we have to understand. We have to understand about the creation. It's necessary so that we can understand how powerful Krishna is. Because Krishna's, through the Vishnus, is taking care of not just this universe, but he's taking care of unlimited universes. So we can't even conceive of, hardly taking care of one castle, one New Mayapur. Or I live in a little house, just taking care of one little house seems quite a big job. Or, taking care of our own minds, big job. But Krishna is taking care of unlimited universes, material universes. And then that's just a small portion of the whole of reality, is the material universes. There's much more going on in the spiritual world. And Krishna's aware of all that as well. And he's taking care of having loving relationships, intense loving relationships with all the jivas in the spiritual world. So Krishna has a one-on-one relationship with every single jiva. simultaneously. So this is, he's running all these things are going on. If we understand something of this, we can't understand everything because we have small capacity to understand compared to the size of reality. Our capacity to understand is very small. But we can understand something from these books, from Srila Prabhupada's books. And in this way we can appreciate Krishna, and then we can start to understand it a little bit, and then we can understand, and then the next thing is to be able to develop some affection for Krishna. The idea is that we can, by reading the books, we understand it's a mistake to be in the material world. It's a mistake. We made a blunder coming to the material world, and that's the reason that we're suffering. People say, why am I suffering? Before I came to Krishna consciousness, I was suffering a lot, but I didn't know why I was suffering. It just seemed to be endless suffering, but for what? So then when you come to Krishna consciousness, realize, oh, I'm suffering because I'm sinful. And why am I sinful is because I don't understand what my duty is. I don't understand who Krishna is. I don't understand that I'm supposed to serve him. And when you get all these pieces of the puzzle, then you start to be able to behave properly, and your future becomes brighter. Prabhupada says, bright future, dark past, bright future. So the idea is we understand our constitutional position, we understand the position that we're in now, and then we take action based on that. We have to act based on knowledge. If you just run around just doing whatever occurs to your mind or whatever other people might engage you in doing, is not the best thing. Most people don't really know what they're doing with their own lives, what to speak of ours. So we need proper knowledge, we need proper information of what to do, what not to do, carrier, what not to do. And so we have to have a proper source of knowledge, an infallible source of knowledge. And the best source of the knowledge is Krishna, because he's in charge of everything. He knows what's going on. And Krishna very kindly has arranged for Srila Prabhupada to write these books. Prabhupada says that Krishna dictated the books. He dictated the books to him. Prabhupada himself liked to read the books, but actually they were dictated to Prabhupada by Krishna to address us, specifically to address fallen souls in Kali Yuga, to explain, this is what's gone wrong, this is how to put it right, and then by reading the books and by chanting the mantra as recommended in the books, the mantra goes, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Just checking that you're awake. So you chant the mantra, your love of Krishna. If you do it nicely, love of Krishna will awaken. You will awaken your love of Krishna. You'll start to have feelings for Krishna. If the mantra is working, you will have a feeling. First of all, you'll start to feel some attraction, and gradually the attraction and the gratitude and the sense of obligation to Krishna will develop into love. That you'll actually wake up and you'll think, oh, Krishna's so nice. And it will be more pleasurable for the mind to think about Krishna than to think about Maya. So we will gradually, switch our focus. Because at the moment we think about Krishna, but there's a tendency to think, well, think about Maya for a while because I like thinking about Maya. Krishna, I have to think about Krishna because I'm supposed to think about Krishna, but actually quite like thinking about Maya. But it gradually, if we keep chanting, we actually prefer to think about Krishna, and thinking about Maya becomes like, you don't really want to do it. And then when you get really purified, the mind automatically flips out of Maya back into Krishna consciousness. You spontaneously go back into Krishna. It's like you become serious Krishna addict. and you don't want Maya anymore. You just get out this Maya. So you have actually a taste. Rati becomes like you have a taste for Krishna consciousness. So the process that we're practicing in New Mayapur, or I say in ISKCON, is that process of going from being, in the darkness of Maya to the bright light of spiritual Krishna consciousness. So there's a transition. So the idea of ISKCON is to pull people from the material world and put them back in the spiritual world. That's the process of sadhana bhakti. When we come to the stage where we're actually attracted to Krishna, it's no longer sadhana bhakti, it becomes raganuga bhakti, spontaneously attracted to Krishna. And this, not only is the material world all described, all the details, how everything works, how everything's created and controlled and organized, but also the process of Krishna consciousness, every stage is detailed. You can read how on this stage there are these symptoms, and then on this stage there are these symptoms, and this stage, and this stage, and this stage. Everything is scientifically laid out. The practice, at different stages of development of the Bhakti Lata. Bhakti Lata is a plant that grows in the heart. Lata means like a creeper. And as the devotion grows, this is an analogy. It's not that you actually get but it grows in the heart. As you grow your devotion, you get more and more luxuriant growth of the Bhakti Lata. And eventually it has fruit, flowers and fruit. But by chanting and reading, we water it. So the process of Krishna consciousness, it works really well, but we have to apply it. You can't just kind of half apply it and expect it to work. Whatever you do, you have to follow the instructions on the packet. If you want it to work, put this much water and this much oil and this much sugar and put it in the oven for 40 minutes and you'll get a cake. Whatever the instructions are. So you have to follow the instructions, and that's why we have a spiritual master. The spiritual master will give the instructions, and we follow the instructions, we get the result. In one sense it's mystical how it happens, how the heart becomes purified, but in another sense it's just a matter of, practicing the process by following the order. So if you don't want to become purified, and if you don't want to associate with Krishna, you don't want to go back to Godhead, then don't follow the process. But if you do, you should do it sincerely and you should do it wholeheartedly. Because what's the point of being in the middle? What's the point of dangling in the middle? A little bit of Krishna consciousness, a little bit of Maya. Why not just be a riven cloud? Arjuna describes it as a riven. Be a riven cloud. You're in the middle somewhere. You're not really being a materialist, and you're not really being a proper spiritual practitioner. But better to do it, to one of them properly. Of course, it's better to be a spiritualist, because if you have practiced spiritual life, you get an eternal benefit. In material life, you might be really good at it, but it's all temporary. I was talking to, I don't think he'll mind me saying this, I was talking to Olivier last night, practicing speaking French, and he was practicing speaking English. But he was telling me how before he came to Krishna, the end of last year, the beginning of this year, he was right in material life, and he had a very successful material life. Everything was chalked out for him to be a successful sportsman. People were giving him honor, and people were, appreciating him, and had lots of financial incentives to carry on that lifestyle. And but it actually was because of the lockdown. He sat down and he started thinking about actually what was the quality of his life. He started thinking about the quality of the relationships he had, and the quality of the, whether he was actually happy or not. He had all his material success, But he was thinking, I don't know if I'm really happy doing this. And when he looked into the future, and you could see the way he was going and the continuation that would come from what he was doing currently, he was going to continue on. He actually decided, it was very brave to make a decision to throw in the whole thing and take up a search for spiritual life, which led him to New Mayapur. So I thought that was an insight, into somebody who was materially successful. Because sometimes they say, people who can't really get material life together, they're the ones who become religious, they're the ones who do spiritual things. But, we're materially together, we don't have to be like that. But actually, no, it's not true. Actually, people who can be very materially successful, and they can be very unhappy because they don't really feel satisfied inside. Because we're a spiritual being, we actually need spiritual food. So Prabhupada gives the example of the bird in the cage. The poor bird is starving. And people are polishing the cage and putting the cage on a nice table and maybe decorating it a bit more and putting bells and ribbons and but the cage, no matter how beautiful the cage, the poor bird is just like dying, getting skinnier, very skinnier, and his feathers are dropping out. His eyes becoming dull, and so we're the bird, if you like. We're the bird. In material life, we're like the bird who's no food. We may have a beautiful, material situation. But we have to feed the bird with some spiritual life. And so then we start to practice spiritual life. We may lose some material opulence. We may not, but we may lose some of our material prestige. We may lose some material friends, sometimes, or your family, or maybe some problems with different material aspects. But then we feel satisfied. And that little bit of satisfaction that we get from spiritual life, which will grow, is worth all the, any amount of material things, because it's permanent. This permanent connection with Krishna. Because we're connected with Krishna, we will never again, get disconnected. Because the relationship with Krishna is eternal. And once we re-evoke that relationship, we show with our free will that we actually want Krishna, then all the other things just become insignificant. There's not like any choice to make, really. The illusory energy will try to drag us back, say, oh no, actually, remember Maya was very nice. Remember how we did this and we did that. But actually, if you really honestly think about it, none of it was nice. It all had such a nasty repercussions, for us or for other people or for the planet or for somebody. Material, when you do something spiritual, it benefits everybody around you, everybody benefits. Even the bugs, if they hear you chanting, it's good. But if you do something material, there's always, something negative. Something negative comes from material activities. You entangle yourself more in Maya, in the illusory energy, and then that leads to sinful activities, and then often the things that we buy or we enjoy or we desire, they're all things that have some negative impact. You can analyze it. If you think of anything, like, I have a very nice car, but what is the ecological impact of the car? Or I like eating chocolate, but then chocolate is not it's not actually a food, and it wastes land, it wastes labor, and it involves a lot of child labor, and so many things, so many things go on in the name of sense gratification, but all of them are not nice. They're not nice. The material world is for people who want to do things that aren't nice. Ultimately, when you really analyze them. Of course, you could argue about that, but when you see, really, what is the point? What is the point of doing temporary things? What is the point of temporary enjoyment? What is the real value? But spiritual life is permanent, so that has permanent value. So if you think about it intelligently, it makes all sense to become serious about spiritual life. So chanting and reading Prabhupada's books is the best way to spend our time. Temple president want you to do so many different services.
You've got nothing else to do.
Look at the sky, the amazing sky. Nobody else could see it, I don't think. Maybe a little bit out that window. It's fantastic. Red, brilliant, beautiful sky. Oh. But if we think, oh, well, if I have to read and chant, I've got to do all this service. But actually the service supports the chanting. And the service, because the service is for Krishna, it's for the deities. Indirectly or directly, the service is for the deities. And that means it supports the chanting. It's a package. Because we can't chant all day. If we are really pure, you can chant all day, chant and read all day.
I chant all day.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, very good. You can do both. Some services you can chant while you're doing it. If you're just using it more like your body. But if you're talking to the bank manager on the phone about something, you wouldn't. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. But yes, you can chant in your mind. So the service and the chanting, they're actually they're the same because they're all pleasing to Krishna. That's the idea. So that if we engage all our waking hours in doing Krishna conscious things, and then we sleep for Krishna. They say that there's Krishna, was it Shravanam, Kirtanam, Krishna Snoranam. Krishna Snoranam, that's when you sleep for Krishna. Never heard that, no? Krishna Smaranam, but Krishna Snoranam is when you go to sleep for Krishna. Yeah. So Prabhupada's arranged that, that we have things to do for Krishna and that we can fill up all our time in spiritual activities. And in that way we're protected, because if you're too busy doing spiritual things, you're too busy for Maya. So in that way the senses are controlled. The senses are like serpents. But if the serpents in India, there are so many snakes, so they have these analogies about snakes, but the poison teeth of the snake. But if you remove the poison teeth, then the snake is harmless. So similarly, the Maya is the snake, the poison fangs of Maya are removed if we engage all our senses in the spiritual service of Krishna. Once you've finished class, please.
That's for you. That's not for everyone.
I have to go, sorry. Okay. So we finished the class there. If anybody has any objections or arguments or question. One soul is awake at the back. Hare Krishna.
Thank you for the lecture. I was thinking about that when you said that atheists, for example, don't believe in how the universe is structured in 6 days. They think it's not possible.
Yeah. Or that it's not possible that such an intelligent being could do it.
Or the way how it's
done. Yeah.
So, but we have in Srimad Bhagavatam first canto a little explanation how the universe is structured, how we can. But still, from my perspective, I cannot understand that. And I'm thinking about that. Do we have to understand it, or is it enough that we have faith that's possible?
Well, if you have faith, that is enough, yeah. If you have faith that Krishna made the world, that is enough. But my understanding is that more we're purified, the more we understand these things. The more we can understand the subject matter of the Srimad Bhagavatam. When we're more pure, we understand more. Now, Prabhupada says that people who eat meat, they cannot understand the books. For vegetarians, they have more chance to understand. Pious people have more chance to understand. So there are different levels of understanding. The more advanced devotee can explain something that to us is baffling. So the more that we are, the heart is purified, because ultimately the understanding is coming from Krishna in the heart. Krishna gives us the understanding, Sham Siddhartha Yuktanam. So Krishna can help us to understand, give us the intelligence to understand. The more we're purified, the more we get that inner guidance. Yeah? So I think we do understand more. I think I understand more than I did before. Yeah. I used to think, well, why is it important? Okay, I'll just kind of read it. I'll read it because it's good for me to read it, but I didn't really. But now I see how it's amazing, how this happens and then that happens, and from this comes that. And I think, well, this is amazing how Krishna's put all this together just because we want Maya. For me, that's really amazing that Krishna's arranged all this because we want Maya. Because we want to live separately from him. He's arranged this whole material world. But yeah, if you just have faith, that's enough. Yeah. As long as it's unshakable faith, because if your faith is too pliable, then your faith can be broken. If somebody came along with a really good scientific proposal, then you might start to wonder, I wonder if it's true what it says in the Bhagavatam. Maybe everything did evolve. Maybe the scientists are right. No, you have to be able to be fixed. If you can be fixed, then...
If you dig deep enough in the science, you start finding science that actually reinforces the...
Yes, there are.
There has to be a great...
Yes. They've just written a book. They're Christians, but they do some good things. The Return of the God Hypothesis. He's just come out with this book, The Return of the God Hypothesis. Because it's, the scientists, these are scientists and the Christians, but they're a group of scientists who put forward intelligent design. This intelligent design that says, look, we just look at the universe at every level, the macro and micro levels, everywhere. There's design in every feature of nature. There's design. So there has to be a designer. And they're just saying, look, it's just a hypothesis, but, it's a better hypothesis than that all happened by chance. It just all fell out of a black hole. And somehow or another, all the laws of nature came into being, and all the elements came into being, and they all put themselves together, and cells just happened to come out of a primordial soup, and blah blah blah. That hypothesis, and evolution can never be more than a hypothesis, because nobody can prove it. You can't run an experiment to see, with millions of years, to see if a life will evolve to the level that we've got it now. So it always remains a theory. So it's much more logical to say that there's an intelligent being, created everything. It's a more logical, even if you don't know, it's just a more logical hypothesis. If there's a super being, rather than a random chance mutation. Because mutations never produce anything positive. So what evidence have you heard that supports evolution? Creation.
I've studied a lot, but one that really sticks out was an experiment to do with quantum physics. They're refracting laser light through different lenses and through different mirrors. And statistically, if reality is down to chance, they should get a result below a certain threshold. But if there's an actual intelligent design, like there's an actual direction that existence is going in, then it should be above this threshold. And after they run this experiment, they say, yes, as far as we can see, the deep and to the minutest particle that we can see, there is a flow, there is a direction, there is something that is guiding where things are going. And the other one is a work with Nassim Haramein, which is how reality is holographic in nature. So a hologram is a three-dimensional picture. If If you cut a hologram in half, you don't get the picture cut in half, you get 2 smaller pictures. If you cut the 2 again, you get 4 smaller pictures. The picture is still whole. Because the hologram is diffusion pattern, and the pattern is it's microscopic. So, and this is the same as reality. Each little part actually contains the entire whole as well, and it's scalar. So we are like, as it says in the whichever book it is, that we are part and parcel of Krishna. We're like little parts of it. So we are tiny representations of what God is, and it's all interrelated. And you can see this in like the spinning of the galaxy, or the spinning of the atoms, the movement of the whole universe, and branches on the macrocosm that look like nerves in the human.
Yeah, the same pattern designs are used. Yeah.
This is scalar, so it's the same pattern, but it's at a different scale.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter how small you are. You're also part of all of it, always.
Yeah.
It's all interrelated.
They start to realize this, some scientists, yeah. But still the mainstream narrative, I think there's going to be like atheistic for a long time yet, but still, there are scientists who are realizing. I mean, I study science, but it made me feel, a great admiration for nature, how all the details were so wonderful. It didn't make me stop believing in evolution until I started really understanding Prabhupada's books and went back and looked at evolution again and thought it was not substantial, actually. Because when you have something better, you're able to give up the first thing, Yeah. So everything's in the atom. So even Krishna's in the atom. Krishna's in every atom. But if Krishna's in the atom, then everything's in the atom because Krishna's everything. So like we were saying, everything being packed down into one. And Krishna's, bigger than everything. So everything's contained in Krishna at the same time as Krishna's in every atom. So that's inconceivable, but that's what you're describing, like from a scientific point of view. Same thing. So reality is just Krishna. It's just nothing but Krishna. Krishna is reality. Conceivable. Prabhupada says the only way that you can really understand Krishna is to know that he's inconceivable, achintya. Yeah. So when Krishna is achintya, then we understand something. Okay, finish there. Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki jai. Shri Prabhupada ki jai for revealing all this to us. Jai. And Hare Krishna to Uddhava. Hare Krishna.